let your wedding be this beautiful exercise in setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, putting yourself first, and watching how you behave vibrationally when other people say no to you having boundaries.
Hi, my name is Aggie and this is Biohack Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond.
All right, welcome to Biohacking Bestie. Today we have a very special episode of our wonderful podcast because my husband is here. Woohoo! Sounds so good. If you're listening to this and not watching, you are missing out on the fact that we're sitting in the most beautiful location. Shout out to Charisma Suites in Santorini for hosting us.
Spectacular.
The most insane views. We needed to come here for our honeymoon number 2 or 3 or whatever it is. We just keep on extending it. So if it's a little windy and if you feel like some wind noises, this is just because we're out in the nature. Yes. And also, if you're watching this and not listening to this and you see that I have a bit of a bitch face, that's because that's what I do when I sit in the sun. And
just the sunglasses on, so you can't see her eyes and the emotions that they're telling.
Yes, which I don't like, but otherwise I'm blind. So it is what it is.
It is. We're excited to be here, talk to you a little bit about the behind the scenes of what went on in our
wedding, right?
epic wedding.
So a lot of you know that we got married, but what you probably don't know is, or maybe you do know, that somehow our wedding blew out of proportions, or I guess the virality of the wedding, I don't know what to call it, but somehow we had over 200 million people watch our wedding content in the first 10 days, and it was just like quite overwhelming, if you ask me. And obviously that sparked a lot of questions about what it takes to produce a wedding like this, and we're here to answer all of these questions.
Yeah, I don't think either of us expected the response to it. We had 2 weeks after the wedding that we were just so enjoying the bubble of post-wedding bliss that we both actually didn't really want to share any of it.
Yeah.
And we were enjoying this just like peace and quiet, and we started to talk about it a little bit, and things just really took off. Which definitely was overwhelming.
Yes, so obviously some of you probably have seen the daytime fireworks, changing of the outfits, the tanners, the beautiful tree that we have built, the dinner setup with like flower chandeliers. What else did we have?
Oh
my God.
All the beautiful guests that we had.
The flash mob that we
the incredible venue that we were in. It was
a lot of things. So as I think what would be helpful with this video is just kind of to say that, like, because things looked perfect, and if you look at the whole day, the 17 hours, the welcome event, the whatnot, out of those hours, 99% was perfect, and there's always that 1% that isn't as perfect. And this is just for all the future brides and grooms that are probably watching our wedding. It's like, oh my God, so perfect in my wedding. This didn't work out, or that didn't work out. And I think I just want to tell you that something always doesn't work out. It's just what life is.
Yeah.
So please don't look at our wedding and think like, oh my God, like things went wrong at mine and theirs was perfect, because it wasn't by any means perfect. And there were a lot of things that didn't really work out, but for us it was perfect because it was our wedding day.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to remember. Like, everything that happened for the wedding happened perfectly because it was meant to be for our wedding day, and we were the only ones on the inside that knew everything that was meant to happen, obviously alongside our planners. But our guests, everything that they got to experience was truly magical, and everything that we got to do in the lead up, the wedding, post the wedding was perfect as well. But I think there's obviously, you can look back and say... But that's important
that no one knew, right? That's another, I guess, is it advice? I don't know, like, it's up to you if you want to tell your guests or not. For us, it was important not to tell best man, maid of honor, mom, dad, sister, and you can imagine everyone's asking you...
right?
Yeah, for a whole year, how's the wedding planning? And you're like, it's great! And like, not mentioning a single detail was quite hard.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that everyone was... your closest people, I care about the closest people having the best experience, but typically you tell the closest people everything. So it's like a nice thing to say, actually, no, look, let's make sure that they are not in the know. in honor of them having a really good time and getting to enjoy these surprises. And for us, throughout the wedding, there were many surprises. I think one of the biggest parts of planning the wedding for both of us was making sure that we really felt that every guest felt that they were meant to be there and they were seen and appreciated and loved for being there. And through these surprises and the little personalizations that we did, it was exactly that.
And I think, I guess we ask ourselves, how do we want to feel on our wedding day, and how do we want our guests? And instead of starting with what we're doing, we started with how we want to feel, which is really important. It's like coaching 101. How do you want to feel on your wedding day? And for me, it was like, obviously, I want to feel loved. I wanted to be present. I wanted to feel soft. I wanted to feel connected with my emotions. For my guests, I wanted them to experience the feeling of awe, because I think one thing that connected us is that Jacob was, when we first met, it was very rare for me to witness a man who just loves being in awe. Like, he was in awe of everything, of the clouds, of the view. Like, look at this, look at this perfect bow. Like, this was just basically Jacob 101. And I was like, wow, like, with everyone being so jaded, Jacob always was the person that was in awe. And that was me. That's why we kind of got into travel planning and travel planning.
Travel planning was not our career.
Travel influencing, blogging. And then we realized, like, we love that feeling. We want this feeling to be felt by our guests.
Yeah, there was definitely a mutual appreciation for celebrating in big and bold ways and celebrating the world as we travel, but then also translating that into how we celebrated our marriage.
Yeah, and I would love to honor you here as well, because it's like, I think a lot of brides are watching this and like, oh my God, I have so many ideas, and they are met with a guy that just like isn't down for it. And I think you were very down to a lot of these things, and kind of push the envelope and see what's happening. Kind of push the envelope and make sure that we can make it our own. I basically said right at the beginning, we decided on the location. We were fighting a bit about the location because I wanted Lake Como forever
to be in. You know, we had a few countries on the hit list of places
I just had Lake
love.
Como. He just wasn't down.
Yeah, it was open to other destinations. But seeing Villa Balbiano and like, you know,
well,
seeing
we
how
went to
iconic it looked
Tuscany
like.
to look.
Yeah.
I wanted Lake Como. We actually went to Lake Como. We kind of looked and we're like, Jacob's like, I'm not too keen. Then we were thinking about Greece. Actually, Santorini is one of those places because it's just really clean. Someone's getting married there today, actually. So I'll show you later. We then were thinking Tuscany. I thought Tuscany was really classy. For us personally, it was underwhelming, a little boring, just not our vibe.
Have that like wow factor, and I think we then
like
came full
things.
circle to. Okay, well, if we're going to do it, if we're going to choose to do it in Lake Como, we're going to choose to do it at somewhere epic.
Yeah,
right?
So obviously, Villa Balbiano, you heard so many great things about the villa. We didn't know what to expect. All we really knew is that it's very popular. And it's
always booked out, very expensive. And the thought of even getting a date within the same year, well, within the same 12-month period, was seemingly impossible. And our engagement and then wedding planning was, you know, immediate. So we basically didn't have that long on our first reach out to them.
And I think
very random dates.
You know, there's a lot of things that went behind the scenes. I think one of the things I would like put all the brides out, not necessarily for Villa Balbiano, but like for all there's certain industry standards that I wasn't aware of. For example, not everything is always included in your contract. So unless you work with a really good wedding planner, we weren't aware that our electricity wasn't included in the contract, which is a massive cost for us. It was shocking. The toilet wasn't included, opening of the front gate wasn't included, and we kind of found out later. It might be industry standard, might be perfectly fine. For us, it's not, because we don't do it every week. We didn't know, and that was like something that you want to keep in mind, and makes it worth asking every single dumb question that comes to your mind. Ask about electricity, toilet, what happens then, what happens here. Like, really just make sure that you're aware of all the costs, because that's not a really fun surprise, like a month before the wedding. And then the second thing, it's obviously less, Villa Balbiano is super expensive. What it was our dream venue.
I think
We
so.
weren't willing to pay for the weekend, so
I was about to say, yeah, the different price points are different things. The weekend rate is significantly more than a weekday. The weekend
Three times more?
Yeah, the weekend you have to have both Saturday and Sunday, and we weren't prepared to do that. So we opted for a Monday.
I know ours was a
brilliant.
destination wedding, so because 100%.
No, 100% of guests flew in, and we wanted to have the festivities spread over a couple of days, which meant people could enjoy the weekend, come on the Friday, be there for that weekend, then, obviously take a day off work on Monday if they needed to.
Yeah, and most of our guests came from the US, so if our friends, we're very lucky, none of our friends actually work in offices. They don't need to ask for a day off, so if that wasn't really an issue to do a weekend, but most of them left kind of Friday, Saturday, so we had our welcome event on Sunday. We had our rite of passage on Saturday, so we had a 3-day event. It was rite of passage on Saturday, then we had welcome event, and then the wedding was on a Monday, and that allowed us to save significant costs, which was really great. Next thing we did, we focused on our ceremony. For us, ceremony was super important. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I haven't been to a ceremony that made me feel like, wow, it's just so through and through an authentic couple ceremony. And so we worked with our coach.
Well, I think it's different for everyone, right? We had very particular things that we wanted to happen to make it feel like that was a very sacred moment, right?
Well, I personally felt like it's like a cookie cutter. It's kind of doesn't mean that it's not there, but I was just like, wow, what if you just reinvent it as much as you can? What can we include? What kind of vows can we include? How can we make it ours as much as possible? How can I support myself in feeling good? What kind of music we can play, and et cetera, right? So, ceremony's definitely been the most complicated.
Yeah, it was the most complex 45 minutes of the whole wedding, I would say, with many moving parts. But it made it very, very special. Each piece of that puzzle was like an integral part that allowed us to feel like there was a container that we could be vulnerable and honest, because at the end of the day, you're inviting your closest people into a space where then you've written a very, very personal message to who would be my future wife, and vice versa, and then you speak that, so you want the container to be
safe.
And
so obviously that was maybe something we should talk about, was we, even though we know a lot of people, we wanted to keep the wedding quite small, so it was really important for us to keep it under 100 guests, and we invited 90 something people, which I kept telling Jacob, most people won't come, it's so far, and they ended up coming, which was amazing.
Yeah. But then for the ceremony, we wanted to make sure that there was only the core people that we knew could hold space for us, and that kind of brings us on to the +1 thing. We basically said no +1s at all for people. The rule was, both Aggie and I have to be friends with the person we're inviting. If they have a +1 that we are also mutually friends with, perfect, they're both invited. But if not, then it would just be a single invite for that person.
We made,
which I think,
2 exceptions to that rule.
A couple of exceptions
for people that were in long-term relationships because we live in a country that they're from, but they're good friends, so we just don't get to see them as often because, we live in the US, they live back in Europe, and they're traveling, and so that was
And then there are a couple of people that helped out with doing things, supporting us throughout the wedding as well. But as a whole, again, that came down to who's going to be able to really hold space for us in this very vulnerable moment for us. And I think that for us was very important.
Yeah, and I think I was just looking back, I would be even more savage about it. I'm just
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people get caught up in the thought that worrying about we had so much focus on our making sure obviously our guests had a great time, but we did also come from the lens that at the end of the day, this is our day. This is our day. We are doing this day, and it has to feel right to us. And that was part of that feeling right to us was having guests have a good experience, but the other part is making sure that we really feel comfortable with every single person that's there.
Yeah, and they say that there's only 2 times in your life when you see everyone that's closest to you in one place at your wedding and at your funeral, but at your funeral you don't have much to say how it all turns out. So it's that one day in your life when you are entitled and encouraged to be selfish and make it about you and how you envision it, right? Like you get to produce it without over considering aunties and uncles. And for us, it was important to not have kids. And just the things we wanted to do is just like, we're doing fireworks, we're like, the property has no barriers, it's over the water, like,
or more just we wanted the energy of adults. Like I didn't
so many
want children
reasons,
running around.
90% of our friends don't have kids, and it just made sense for us.
And the ones that did were all super understanding, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
it was great.
And I those who weren't, I think I just want to say that it's like, I know that this is something for a lot of brides go through. Like, oh, my husband's family, they have kids. They make me feel really bad for not wanting to have kids. And, you know, we got hate on social media even saying, like, how can you disconnect families? But I'm like, there is a reason. It's like an adult event. And our event was an adult event. And they're just like, that was really important to hold that container. And
if they're not our children, then, and even if we are our children, we're like, all right, they can stay with the nanny.
Yeah. At the wedding. No, but I think just like give yourself permission to really speak up, like, hey, listen, this is important. And I think it's like whenever you communicate your boundaries and you say, like, this is my day, I would love to have it adults only. I just find I don't have kids. I find I get easily distracted. I would love this day to not be. Well, and kids are distracting in the most beautiful way. They're like, they're life. They're distracting. They're cute, but it's not. Sometimes kids make things about them, and this one event is about you and your love and just being able to drop in properly and focus, and all of these distractions make sense. And I think what we have been, when we were designing our wedding, we were like, what would minimize our distractions? I kept saying, like, no one upstairs is allowed while I'm getting married.
Getting ready.
Meditation, getting ready.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No one's allowed upstairs when I'm getting ready, and as little people as possible, and it's full focus, and I have a meditation, and it's like, it's almost like you're preparing for Olympics or the most important, like, run in your life. You know, this is the fucking
you walk now.
But like, it's, you know, it's the world championships, the Olympics of your life. And when you see sportsmen getting ready, they don't have a million people going through. It's like same on a film set. You know, I worked on a film set. I don't know, Dakota Johnson was like, no one's looking me in the eye. I'm just one by myself. I'm only hanging out with one person.
Mentally preparing. At the end of the day, like, you're there to get into, you're there to marry this person that you have been with. Like, that requires, it's such a huge moment in life. It requires focus and attention and the space being
and if
held
you
for
need
that.
this to be peace and quiet, that doesn't include kids, and the family doesn't get it, then that's really hard. And I can tell you get over it, but we know from our perspective, the people that we didn't invite their +1 and they got offended, it's really hard because you feel like, hey, it's my best friend. I don't know your partner at all. I would love for you to be there. I just don't invite people that I don't know. And some people got offended, and it's really hard to deal with, and it's really hurtful. And I think it's just like, one thing I would say for sure, that wedding, I used to think it's a piece of paper, and now I see, like, if you do a big wedding, it's like 10 years of friendship in one day, because it's just such big energy that it really highlights everything. Your shadow, your partner's shadow, your friend's shadow, how strong your relationship is, your relationship ego-based, or if it's like actually people are there for you. Like, are they really happy for you? And they're like, fuck, whatever you want, I'm here for you. And I had that, my bridesmaid were like, that energy.
The same. Like, truly,
like, whatever you want. Like, I don't care what I look like. I'm here for you.
Like, honestly, there's a come down afterwards. Like, well, my friends were so great. Wait, is this not going to be forever in terms of, like, whatever you need? We've got.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and we were super lucky that we have that. But I know, speaking to other brides, that's not the case. That the family makes it about them, and it makes it difficult, and people get offended. And
I think also something to note is that, like, we paid for the wedding ourselves, right? So it's like there wasn't the influence, which I think some people have from parents who are paying for the whole wedding, where they're like, well, we want to have these people and do this because we're paying. I think it's very different dynamic.
But it's also like a very interesting dynamic when your parents are paying, but it's like, that's not their wedding. So it's like, is that really a gift, or?
Yeah, well,
it's a tough dynamic. Would you? Yeah. So we want to share with you a couple of ideas that we found were super helpful that you can do without, whether or not you have a big budget or not, because that's to me is really important. That like it's really easy to look at our weddings like, oh my god, they spent so much money, da da da. But at the same time, the best part of our wedding wasn't the fireworks and wasn't God knows like the insane flower setup or building a tree.
Was personal items.
Yeah,
right?
personal items and making like surprising people and just keeping everything as like keeping them on their toes so everyone has high energy. So the whole energy of the
I think
wedding
that was a really important factor. Like I would say nothing felt like it went on too long. Like we really wanted to make sure that there was a good flow and an hour here, a couple of hours here, whatever it was, there was just like a really nice
cocktail was super
flow.
quick. We didn't want to have like proper photo shoot with the photographer. We're like, okay,
we wanted to be immersed with our guests as much as we could. Photos was like, okay, let's get this done. Let's get it done quickly so we can really be with the people that have traveled so far and get to celebrate our love with them, with our family. And but yeah, these personal items, there was a few of them, right? So we had Ask Me. Do you want to explain about that?
You can explain.
Cool. So for every single guest, we wrote a little Ask Me About, and it was a little kind of name tag, essentially, that had their name, obviously, and then a little sentence that said, Ask Me About, and something unique about them. So everyone during the cocktail hour was able to go get theirs and stick it on, and we then came up with the 87 different Ask Me Abouts for each person, something unique, something funny, to begin a conversation, to get people talking, because at the end of the day, we have friends from multiple different countries around the world coming together for the first time, and we wanted to break the ice. I'd say partly the welcome event was breaking the ice, but this being in person, people absolutely loved it.
And we used a lot of like very intriguing things. We didn't just say like, ask me about my dog or whatever.
Oh, it was very
like, ask me why I'm
unique
creepy
things.
or ask me... Right, what, like
that makes sense when you realize that the company they are is called Creeps. No, but like, just for context.
No, but like even with people don't need to know. It's like, wait, that's weird. Like, why does it say that? So
ask me a rhetorical question.
Yeah. So it just as a conversation starts. So that was really cool. Then I'd say the second thing, the flash mob was really cool. We weren't able to film it properly, but we had a gospel choir that basically started standing up in the middle of the ceremony to surprise guests with their performance, which I thought it was really unique and cool.
Yeah.
It was super cool to see our guests like light up.
Yeah, they were amazed. Obviously, the fireworks was like a wow moment. But the other personal one was obviously the notes that we did at dinner. That was a big one, I think, that people really felt seen and appreciated.
Well, that was what we sat down and we're like, I probably won't have time to sit and thank, I don't know, Sam or Sophie or whoever that came personally and like have like a drop in 30 seconds of like, I'm really so grateful that you're here, because with 90 guests, even if you say hello, how you doing,
it's amazing how much time you think you have, and then suddenly it's like, oh my god, there's so many people, and we didn't speak to a few people that were there, I think, much at all. We tried to get around everyone, but it's amazing how time quickly disappears with everything going on. So we
wrote just like a little personal note from both of us that was on the menu. So everyone had a personalized menu, which basically, apart from what they're eating, was like it was like a letter, what I would want them to say. So as they sit down for dinner, it was just like, hey, really appreciate your light, the value.
It was personalized to each person though, right? It was like we wrote a little personalized note, 2 or 3 sentences to every single person.
And again, this is something you can do for free.
Yeah, I mean, it was, from a stationery standpoint, it probably adds up because it's more individual, but it doesn't have to be. You could handwrite them and obviously have a really beautiful experience with that. But for us, I think seeing people open them and seeing people's reactions just as we were sat at dinner and like they're talking was magical.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I think another thing that was really cool, we did have a magician at the cocktail hour. We had 3 tenors that were surprised at dinner.
Which were fantastic. The 3 tenors did these like amazing. So we pre-picked 3 songs that they would come out and do, and again, people are having their food, and suddenly you hear this person just with this beautiful Italian voice walking onto stage, and then 2 more follow him, all with champagne, come out and sing these incredible songs.
And one thing for me, like obviously as someone who loves producing and like feeling, where are the tenors? Why are they late? They were supposed to come after the main. Like I couldn't sometimes turn off my brain as things were happening. And I think one big advice for brides, and the biggest thing that I think we were able to achieve, sometimes I would have this moment of like, why things are late or whatever. But if you're having fun, people that love you will be so happy seeing you have fun. So like instead of going into producer mode, just like, I think I had the best like joy. I was crying from happiness looking at the tenors because they were just so happy. They were so amazing. Like I wasn't really just like the old me would try to make sure everyone else was dancing and maybe not having fun
more
myself.
micromanaging things because you know you've put time and effort into it instead of just going, okay, cool, we're here now. Nothing can actually change. Like we've planned everything we can. You might as well just enjoy it because otherwise you will just regret it.
Yeah,
like,
and so I had this moment where like, are they late? Is it happening? And then I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm just having the best time ever. And then like started jumping and singing and clapping and then crying, and it was really beautiful. So I think just enjoying it all, that was super cool.
Yeah, really just showing up as you would want to.
Yeah, so I think that is great. I think we should record another podcast when it comes to like my dresses and kind of the decisions when it comes to like the menu and the budget, and you know everyone's very curious what our budget was.
But I think overall we can definitely talk about that. Changed a lot.
But we did go over budget.
Yeah, we went very far over budget, and I absolutely regret none of it. It was the best day of my life. But I do think
it just changes your vibration forever. It really does. It really, like having like a day of like true connection bliss. Like, can you put money on it?
But also, like, there are like what we design and what we came up with. Like, and are expensive, but like walking down that aisle, like I've never felt like energy that I felt walking down the aisle, and I think partly it came to what we built. Like if it had just been an aisle just then with nothing, without the tree, without the mirror, like all of these things came together that like felt you were in this just vortex of, I don't even know how to describe it. Like I felt like I was walking down the aisle watching myself walk down the aisle.
Yeah, it was the most out of the body experience, and
the most in body at the same time, right? Like it was just this.
Yeah, and so like if you've ever done Bufal or 5-MeO DMT, which is otherwise called that, it's basically when they say like the molecule of God, you die. That was like, save yourself drugs, you just get married, and that like, gives you like that really that. And I'm sure it's similar when you give birth to your child. That it's like a total out of body experience, especially that we're fighting for the mirrored aisle. That was a little smoky. We were fighting for the tree. Like we had this vision, we want this trunk to be to a side, not in the middle, because we didn't want the trunk to be in the middle. It was just like this whole thing, and I thought it was really, really special when all of it came together. And I think not only just seeing it down the aisle, but seeing what we have birthed together as a couple.
Yeah, and on that note, I think the collaboration aspect of what the few months leading up to it was fantastic. You know, being able to sit down and look at what we're doing, think about the different aspects of the wedding, and there are so like the only wedding I've been to since my parents. So, you know, it was a lot to think about all these different stages of what was going to happen, but then to be able to collaborate together and think about these ideas was a super fun experience. Yeah, and I think there's so many things that I would like to mention maybe in a separate video when my face isn't frying in the sun. Freaks, and honestly, I can't. My face, it's so hot. Yeah, I think we need to wrap up, guys. Oh, yeah, you're roasting.
Yeah, so if you see me doing this with my hand, it's because I'm absolutely roasting.
Do that. There you go.
Thanks. But I hope this was helpful a little bit, and I think let your wedding be this beautiful exercise in setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, putting yourself first, and watching how you behave vibrationally when other people say no to you having boundaries. Because people that love you and support you, they will be very happy for you to have boundaries. They will be very happy. Like, okay, whatever you want, it's your wedding. And some people will be like really upset, take things personally, and that's just a bit of a yellow flag.
Like it really tests every aspect of, you know, both a relationship, but also your friends around you, your family around you. There are like so many things that the wedding unearths. I mean, it's such a powerful part of a relationship and moving into the next stage of life that is like, it's obviously going to be the case, but I don't think you realize it until you're in it. And then you do, but it's a beautiful kind of learning experience that I feel grateful to have gone through. Yeah. So thank you for listening and for watching. We'll record a part 2 in a couple of weeks when I'm not getting burned, and we can go into much detail about other design aspects. Some questions that you'd like to know. Yeah, comment below and we'll take it from there. Love you. Bye.